The mainstream narrative about the issues I've raised is so firmly ensconced that even with the particulars in record and the evidence online, Seattle could quite easily just murder me in exactly the way that I fear and hate them for poisoning and torturing me in the past, and it would only strengthen the settled foundation for the authorities' views. And the one reason for this comes from the left, the so called journalists for the axis of resistance to U.S. imperialism. And that is that um, the mainstream narrative actually contains the elements for the path to world peace. Some of the examples are very clear. One of the elements of settled history is that the U.S. engages in overthrow of democratic leaders to pursue its oil interests in places like Latin America and the Middle East, which is imperialism. And that these countries are not recognized for their legitimacy, their heritage, their culture, their struggle under imperial interests, their ancient and learned culture and people, men and women. And these liberation tendencies towards recognizing that these people have been compromised in their fulfillment by European powers, sometimes resembling the old Nazi vanguard, and have great potential. And that, of course, is the path to world peace, recognizing that peace is Russia's interest, Iran's interest, Syria's interest, laying off of them, stopping the nonsense towards them, allowing them recognition, satisfaction, appreciation, alleviation of the norms of oppression is the best hope for the fulfillment of the world, the flourishing of the world under new understanding of ecology, cultural competence, of multipolar power exchanges, of win-win arrangements with China, and a future of learning and fulfillment for everybody. He's supposedly challenged by the heartbreaking reality of the hidden history of the 80s. In some ways, it boils down to who pays for the food in the senior center. You have a mentality that was very generously given precedence over battered, traumatized, savagely molested, terrorized, lied to, stolen from Irish, who was put up as a white hate object for what the administration openly called cow hooves therapy. Used it as a sex object, beat it up, terrorize it, stick it with pins. Then you'll feel better about the con job visited on you by Sir Paul McCartney. James McRyland Curry, who could ask for a better name for goblins to devour in the name of Cornel West? And they rigged the whole thing. The totalitarian society that was responsible didn't allow me not to make love to their Venus flytrap. They didn't allow me not to be poisoned with a nerve agent. They didn't allow me not to be kidnapped and stolen cars. I wasn't given a choice about being brutally, savagely subject to slaughtering blows to the head. I wasn't given a choice about being gassed in King's Estate or hiding in a towel closet while they laughed off shelf. Don't say like Anne Frank. I wasn't given a choice in any of these things. They arranged it. And dismally, they did it according to a spreadsheet of operational liabilities. It was all calculated and fiendishly schemed out so the parochial authorities could wiggle their theological fingers about sex while they were subjecting me to what they called successive degradations of the X motive. And you have Foucault meeting with the Ayatollah committee. According to the 80s, theological Iran despised America's decadence. Well, we sent an ambassador of decadence to meet with him. And they Iran conjured an agreement with Robert Fripp to say, virginity proves rape. And they were like, Allah, torch of Allah. Now, again, if you talk to Syed Nasser, for example, upon whom be peace, he's a brave, talented, insightful, ancient mind of learning from Persia, or what we call Iran. And he could testify the condition he saw me in, which was irregular but interested in what was happening. A modernist seeking some insight. Now, Robert Fripp was spreading gospels of Sufism, and that's what lured me into this Gurdjieff scene. So you have to take apart administrative collusion with theological totalitarians from within the University of Pittsburgh, laughing it up through Israel and Russia to get the true picture of what was being done in regard to suppressing the evidence that they were putting on a play that planned the attack on the queer society. While David Bowie, who spelled the whole thing out in Diamond Dogs, which was quite literally an adjunct of Gail Burston's records, convinced people that it would be funnier than rescuing the children at risk to put on a play about scaring Jimmy Queerbait. And this is Pittsburgh's specialty, is to batter and torture an object. And we're supposed to say, automatically, Iran would approve of doing that to the modernist. Dugan would approve of doing that to the confused liberal. That Vince Irini would clearly approve of doing it to Jimmy Curry is a given in the city of Pittsburgh. That John Schulman can't wait to get his revenge is a given. But what they do is hide it. And they hide it because people have to move on. It has to be swept under the carpet. We have to have the narrative provided by Arnold Schwarzenegger that Reagan didn't know and was doing good things for the ecology by giving all Americans a piece of the expanding pie. And Curry's regrets for not having a family will be answered by his giving all his hard work to Greta Thunberg's escapade for the Jim and Green Party. The evidence to Two Virgins Pussy Ball was an adopted secret operation by the British Empire is perfectly clear from the telltale clip and the evidence from Hitler-Reagan semiotics. They murdered my father. Seattle administration wants to sweep that under the carpet. They expect me to pretend they didn't, that they didn't poison me, that they didn't give me Parkinson's. We're all supposed to say that's a good thing because it's the path to world peace. This way, the food kitchen will have enough to airdrop Newports to the troopers in Glory to Ukraine propaganda. It doesn't make any sense. How can you sweep what you did under the carpet and expect it to make any sense? And so they say, well, who's going to pay for the food kitchen? All of these issues are not answered by stealing from a deaf person who you've tortured. They're not answered. What it gives is the psychological therapy of having a ripoff to the perpetrators who claim that the spreadsheet of Catholic services for pornographic genocide was a legitimate analysis of the impact of population not on ecology, but on imperial designs in society, and theological empire is part of imperial designs. Now, people would say, are you saying that Iran and America are not actually furiously at odds? Look what Israel is doing to Palestine. I'm not saying that there's not furious fighting going on between the Balrogs of the military industrial complex around the world in the least. What I'm saying is they agreed to a common tactic at one point during the 80s to hush hush what Gail Burstyn was doing. And one of the vehicles for this hush hush was Cornel West and the African Union that came to the defense of Palestine. Nelson Mandela is a part of the absolute enshrinement of the settled legacy of the 80s that the existence of Gail Burstyn's letters completely shines a light on, because they wanted to capture the symbol Midori Goto for Two Virgins Pussy Ball as therapy and as a tribute to their going along with Hitler's revenge. And this all comes from the Beatles and the status quo that they've put together with the media superstate. And so when Aaron Bushnell, for example, gets his name made into a street in Palestine, it is in fact endorsement of the idea of torturing somebody to death who doesn't want to be tortured to death. This comes from the mind of Roger Waters and maybe Cornel West, but certainly Gail Burst and Netanyahu. Roger Waters back in the mid 70s said, we know what you dream. Don't, it's all right, we know what you dream. If you look at the way Gail Burstyn produced Pink Floyd's The Walrus, they had people in my immediate environment who filled in the eidetic vision, the visualizations of figures. In the book they had me read, that was then, this was now in The Outsiders. My mind automatically took the people I was meeting in my immediate arrangement and put them into the inner space for the eidetic vision of the book I was reading, to populate the images of the book that I was reading, the way I visualized it. And the Clint Eastwood guy in school, McIntosh, was reading it to us when we were supposed to be teaching us math. We know what you dreamed. There's a Hollywood invasion of the psychic space. It's Ouspensky, fourth dimensional psychology, the trudge to Russell Bennett on High Court Circle, and Billy Rod now in West Virginia, Climate Complaint, Conscientious Objective. And the whole thing was built on theological conscientious objection to abortion. That's the reason why the Catholic worker went along with it, because Catholic people saw abortion as a moral counterpoint to the AIDS attack. That was because of abortion that it was done, and it was more. It wasn't less moral. It wasn't more moral. It was just as immoral. And so they have a point counterpoint going at the University of Pittsburgh. It may not have been moral to beat the living brains in of a deaf child and blow their mind out in a stolen car with a nerve agent, but It was righteous. It was righteous because of the perfectionist twist that was put on it by the golden future voyage of the survivor group in the arc of colors. So the administration of the University of Pittsburgh doesn't have to investigate the murder of senior faculty in a revenge attack put together by disgruntled Japanese and Black Panthers working together in a new Zoot Suit riot. They don't have to do it. They don't have to investigate Two Virgins Pussy Boat Clark to the AIDS attack. They don't have to investigate the so-called elders' complicity in justifying it. All they have to do is say the truth is what we've already told you, and that's ensconced, and we're not going to recognize this stuff about a staged and phony intercept. After all, did the neurohypnotized golem not say she's taunting me because I refused to force myself on her? And jump down, hold peepee, comes Robert Fripp with a burning spear. He was staring at me. He has a rapacious aspect. He's obsessive over virginity. He is my God. He is a rapist tiger from the boondocks of Pittsburgh who could have saved John Lennon, but we were dragging him through glass, making him eat bat feces. And if he had had his way, he'd have done what he wanted. You could tell by the analysis of our peep of his investigation of Neva Corporation to find out what the hell they think they're doing. The whole thing is absurd hogswash, and they refuse to admit that what they're doing is simply making a balance sheet for more military spending. There's nothing wrong with the objects that are in play to bring about peace. Reconciliation of the survivor groups are fine and good. Dignity of the victims is a good thing. But misrepresentation of who did it, where it came from, how it operated, what happened is a scam from British media who have sandbagged in defense of the people who did it, that they will never, ever allow anyone to know what happened.